Good evening. StabtheDragon here tonight with whiskey review number 27, as we'll be sampling Tahwahkaro Texas Rye Malt Whiskey from the Tahwahkaro Distillery in Grapevine, or is it Palestine? It's Palestine, Texas now. Is this a rye? Is it a single malt? Is it both? Whatever it is, it sure tastes like Texas whiskey to me. Because I changed the format a little bit, I'm going to give the summary here at the start. My total score for this whiskey is a 93. Letter grade, A+. My recommendation, this rye whiskey, and it's classified as a rye whiskey, is as unusual and different as Balcones Texas Rye. It's just a different kind of rye. It's going to hit you as a Texas single malt first. Then some of the rye flavors will sneak up on you in a spicy, non-herbal, sparkly hot kind of way. This is a great combination of complex flavors. If I did a blind tasting and did not know this was a rye, I don't think I would guess rye. Not at all. In other words, this is yet another unique Texas whiskey that is wild and amazing. If you're into ryes or single malts, if you're into Texas whiskeys in general, you simply can't pass this one by. In other words, this has something for everybody, I think. I mean, it really is unique. So if you've tasted some Texas whiskeys and you don't much care for that unique Texas funk that really comes from the heat and the char of the barrel, you probably ought to pass this one by because the Texas char is strong with this one. Texas has made a unique stamp on the whiskey world, and Tahwahkaro out of Palestine, Texas, adds complexities to the Texas whiskey scene. This will be a favorite of mine, for sure. But I tend to say that about all these Texas whiskeys, don't I? Yeah, maybe so. So let's get into the details now. The history of this. Since the last review I gave was the Tahwahkaro 4-grain bourbon, I gave all the history there, so I'll just kind of summarize it. This whiskey company, this distillery, was started in 2016 by brothers Justin and Jason Jackson in Grapevine, Texas. This distillery did not do what most do and put out rum, vodka, and gin in order to make money while their whiskeys matured. They put all their resources into the whiskey from the start, and this is one of the two whiskeys they started from the beginning. So this distillery, named with an Indian word for bend in the river in Grapevine Creek in Grapevine, Texas, proceeded to move to Palestine, Texas in 2021. In 2019, this rye malt won silver at the Whiskeys of the World competition, and then the Texas Whiskey Festival of April of this year, 2022, had this whiskey as the winner in the rye whiskey category. So the history, 5 points. 5 points for the history. Marketing, bottle, packaging. The bottle shape is of the old Western canteen style, similar to what you'd see in a Civil War movie or an old Western. But the odd shape may be a problem on your shelf. I mean, look at how wide this is. Or at the store, right? And I told you the story of a reviewer that I read who was looking for this, and the store clerk had turned all the bottles this way, right, to narrow the shelf space, and there's no label here on either side. So that was an interesting problem that reviewer had discovered. The stores that I shop at all had the bottle the proper way like that. I rather like and appreciate the bottle shape. Thoroughly enjoy that Western canteen motif. I like the Indian name. I do think they need to place a picture of an Indian or a cowboy or something on the bottle. And the only knock on this bottle, besides the shelf space it takes up with its unusual shape, is the cap is not totally functional. If you look at this cap, it is a very small, tiny, narrow thing. And so I really have to use one of these rubber gripper things to get a grip on that cap and take it off. I think that cap needs to be just a little bit taller, larger. But nonetheless, for marketing, bottle, packaging, and I've not seen any advertisements really for this. In fact, very few reviews of this. But I'm going to give it 4 points out of 5 for the bottle. Composition. The video from the distillery on YouTube, and that is a YouTube video. It doesn't. If you go to the website for Tahwahkaro, you don't see this YouTube, and I think that's a mistake. I think they need to put that YouTube or that kind of a video on the website. But it says the mash bill for this whiskey is 68% malted rye, 17% rye berries, 6% corn, 6% wheat, 3% Cara Amber barley for a deeper red color. Rex and Daniel at the Whiskey Vault have a really good review on this one, but the distillery website doesn't have the mash bill information that I needed, so that's why I went to YouTube and looked and found this composition. But the fact that there's a video by the distillery about the composition and it gives that kind of a breakdown, I thought that was outstanding. So for composition, 15 out of 15 points. Physical appearance of this whiskey. Now, it's not quite as dark as the bourbon, but still, look at that. Look at how dark that is in the bottle. Okay? Now, here in the glass, again, for a rye whiskey to be this dark, and I don't know if you can tell how red that is, but that's approaching the level of a red beer. And that's what that Cara Amber does. Cara Amber is used in some beers to give it a darker red coloring, I think. But that, for a rye whiskey, that's pretty dark. I think I'm going to have to, when I do a competition tournament thing, I'm going to have to hold whiskeys up side by side and see which ones are darker. But that's pretty dark for a rye whiskey. So physical appearance, I'm going to say, is 5 points out of 5. Let's nose it. Now, my nose is notoriously bad, but I'm actually able to smell something here. Smell a little bit of the malted rye, some char and caramel. It doesn't smell like any other rye, though. I'm not getting a rye spice. It's not as rich of a nose as the 4-grain bourbon. But yeah, other ryes, I can usually smell the rye spice, but not with this one. The malted aspect of the rye and then the Texas char kind of take over. The nose is pleasant, though. And the fact that I can actually smell something, that speaks well of it. So 8 out of 10 for the nose. So let's go in for a taste. The website says vanilla, butter toast, toffee, chocolate, white pepper, and spice. The only thing out of that list I really get is the spice. Here's what I get. The malt is the dominant taste. I can taste the maltiness of this thing. The spice kicks in, but it's really not like the rye spice. It's not herbal. It's not a rye bread kind of a taste. It's sparkly. It's hot. It's cinnamony. On the rye whiskey spectrum, to the left is the rye spice bread note herbal thing. Okay, the Acre Texas Rye that I reviewed a few months ago, or the 10th Mountain Rye I reviewed several months ago. Those have a real rye bread kind of a taste and smell to them. Okay. This is actually more similar to something like Wild Turkey 101 or maybe James E. Pepper 1776. It's a more spicy, hot kind of a flavor to it, right? But here's the deal. Wild Turkey 101 is a barely legal rye. Their mash bill is 51% rye. This one, when you add up the two different kinds of rye it's 85% rye. And it does not taste like rye. The malt aspect really takes over. It's got the strong Texas funk from the heat and the wood char. Probably not quite as strong as their bourbon does, I think. But this is a very different rye. It's different from anything I've had. The only thing I can, and category I can put it in is like if you've had Balcones Texas Rye, it's not similar to Balcones. Well, it may be more similar to Balcones, but it's in that category of being very different. Okay, so this is very different. It's a rye, legally, technically, it's a rye, but man, it's different. Okay, and it's wonderful. But the fact that the mash bill has some corn and wheat in it, I think affects it. I mean, there's a sweetness to it, but this is also almost like putting a red hot, those little red hot candies when you're a kid. It's almost like putting that in your mouth. I mean, it's very spicy, okay? And it does get up in my sinuses a little bit. Burns on the way down a little bit, but not quite a Kentucky hug, okay? So the taste here, sweet, yes, but spicy. I'm going to say 23 out of 25 points here. And that's a point lower than the bourbon sibling of Tahwahkaro. And it's also a point lower than the Acre Texas Rye. The Acre Texas Rye is kind of a classic rye flavor, and it was really good. This is different, okay? Now, different's good. 23 out of 25 is good. Mouthfeel, finish, I think I've already covered some of this, is that it's not thin at all. I mean, the proof on this, I think, is 105. Yeah, I didn't say that earlier. This is a 105 proof rye, which is for a rye very high. The Acre Texas Rye was 80. Okay, and I scored that one really high. That was a wonderful rye. But this is 105, and it punches, I think, at that level, if not above. I mean, this has a punch to it, okay? Now, some people would say it's not smooth because of the punch. But for me, it's a very pleasant punch. I like a spicy, kick in the mouth kind of a whiskey. And boy, this delivers. Okay, so the mouthfeel on this, the burn on this is strong. The strong cinnamon on the finish is there. Like I said, it's almost like one of those red hot candies when you were a kid. Long-lasting finish and flavor. So yeah, 14 out of 15 points here for the mouthfeel and finish. Definitely. Man, yeah, that's a good one. Price, value, and availability. I paid $56.99 at Goody Goody. Total Wine does not list this, and I don't think I haven't seen it at Total Wine. They carry the bourbon, but not the rye, which is kind of weird. Specs on the website listed at 6167, which doesn't seem right. I'm kind of thinking they've confused this one maybe with maybe there's one more Tahwahkaro, and it's like a barrel proof, I think. And so 6167 does not sound right for this, but maybe so. And I did not see it at the specs. This was on the website. The website at specs is kind of messed up because it gives you the website for another store instead of the store you're actually shopping at. And that's kind of messed up. So I looked for this at specs and did not see it. So price, value, and availability. Only a 9 out of 10 because it's not widely available. It is, a bit pricey, but this is a craft whiskey, and it's a unusual craft whiskey. I mean, a malted rye. I think at the $56.99 price that it's a good value. Absolutely, considering for what you get. So the only problem is its availability. I don't know how far from Fort Worth, this goes, or all throughout in Texas. I mean, it's in Palestine now, so I'm not sure how widely distributed it is. I need to figure out a way to check that. But I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for value and price. Neat or mixer. I'm a neat only guy. If you've watched these videos, you know that. I only drink them neat. But I think this is powerful enough to where it could handle an ice cube. and I may very well do that. I mean, the summer heat's upon us. We've already, gotten in the high 90s here in Fort Worth. So I may try this with an ice cube, but my prior experience with, drinking whiskey on the rocks has not been good, because to me it just dilutes it too much. And I really don't do cocktails, but I need to. I need to figure out, because this whiskey, the proof at 105 is strong. The flavor is strong. Man, there's got to be some kind of cocktail you could put this in and it would knock your socks off. I mean, this is good. So I'm going to give it a 5 points for Neater Mixer. Bonus, well, you know me, I'm a homeboy for these Texas whiskeys, so 5 points. Bonus, even though a little bit disappointed they moved from Grapevine to Palestine, but hey, we'll cut them some slack there. So altogether, that point range gets up to 93, which is an A+ in my book. So conclusion, in my whiskey journey, I've realized that I do tend to like the simpler, less complex whiskeys. And the fact that those are more in my price range plays a part. I mean, $70 is the most I'm going to spend on a whiskey, and that rarely, okay? But when it comes to Scotch, I've noticed I tend to actually prefer the cheaper blended Scotches. I mean, Cutty Sark is one of my favorite Scotches. J&B, Chivas Regal, Johnny Walker Red. I'm one of the rare guys who likes Johnny Walker Red. And the single malts, I mean, man, I tend to prefer the cheap things like Cutty Sark to Talisker Storm. Okay, I mean, I just do. Or Ardbeg 10. I tend to prefer the cheaper, sweeter blends, I guess. In bourbon territory, again, I like budget bourbons. Evan Williams, Wild Turkey 101, Jim Beam Black, Elijah Craig. But in Texas whiskeys, I'm different. I'm finding I really like the depth and complexities that the Texas climate imparts to these whiskeys. And Tahwahkaro, even though it's a young whiskey, is very complex to me. Maybe my palate's confused, I don't know. But that 4-grain mash bill in their bourbon and here in the malted rye makes for what some may say is a confusing drink, but turns out to be marvelous for me. I will definitely look forward to the tournament I'm planning for this fall, so I can figure out if I can find a favorite Texas whiskey. For right now, though, I think I'm going to give the edge to these 2 Tahwahkaro whiskeys. That's all for now. If you drink, drink wisely. StabtheDragon, out here.